This is the Lydian Spoon with Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl. Hello, Timothy.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. Are you on vacation?
I'm just a couple days visiting the mom up in Massachusetts, and then
Send
I'll
my
be back.
regards.
Yes,
The best salad maker in the U.S.
sure, I'll make sure I tell her. Okay.
Absolutely. I've tried to copy a recipe, but it's inimitable. What can I say?
Yeah, interesting. Okay, all right.
All right.
I'll tell her. Maybe maybe I'll have her make one. I'll deliver one to you.
I can't wait. You you usually bring your cooler up there, so bring it down.
Nice, nice, nice.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
I don't eat them, but one of my favorite animals are the jellyfish. And
All right.
and especially because I love Jellyfish Lake. And anybody who doesn't know what that is, just go to YouTube because Jellyfish Lake is the place I go in my mind's eye for my summer vacation, where there's thousands of emerald colored jellyfish that you can swim amongst without being stung. I love it.
And
A
there's
lake
also,
in the
are they phosphorescent? Do they
they
glow at night?
well, actually, they have bacteria within them that, when the sun comes up, rises to the sun in this great turquoise water, and then the bacteria feeds on the sun, and the jellyfish feed on the bacteria.
Where is
And
that lake?
it's a lake in the middle of the Pacific Ocean near Pilau. I mean, a lake and an ocean. It's just, I just check it. Trust me, that's where I go on my vacation, my mind's eye. But I'm very happy about this. So,
Sure.
scientists have unlocked the genetic code of the immortal jellyfish in the hope of unearthing the secret to their
Mm.
unique longevity. I might start eating them after all. The creature is capable of repeatedly reverting to a juvenile state. Hey, sounds like most people I know. And researchers in Spain have discovered that the genes could explain their long lives. So, scientists at the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and University of Oviedo, a beautiful place in the north of Spain, mapped the genetic sequence of the so-called immortal jellyfish species, the Turritopsis dorni. Now, this species goes through a two-part life cycle and lives on the seafloor, and for some reason has two copies of the genes that protect and repair their DNA. So the study was aimed at understanding what made this jellyfish different by comparing the genetic sequence of other jellyfish, a close relative, and they found that it's the variations in this genome that make it better at copying its DNA. I'm very excited about this study,
I
and
think lobsters have the same thing going on.
well, that's why we like to occasionally munch on them.
Yes, exactly.
I like
And
to
it's,
I like to eat anything that gives me longer life, which is, yeah, not that many things really in the American diet.
I mean, the problem is lobsters are dumb, so nature kind of takes care of them. You know how a lobster trap works, right?
Do tell.
It's basically one giant open. It's like
Cage.
it's like a cage with a net in it. It's like this big open door,
Yeah.
and they put little bait in there, and the lobsters go in, and then they're so dumb they don't know how to just turn around and leave.
Well,
Like it's kind of they're like, what do I do? And they just
well,
stay
they're
there, and
used to going forward, not backward.
yeah, but they can swim backwards. Whatever reason, they freak out. Now there's a little trap door for the babies to escape because lobsters are cannibals. So the little ones are gonna get munched themselves if they're in there with a big one.
Yeah, can you blame a lobster for eating a lobster? They're
No, I can't.
kind of damn tasty.
I
And we
can't at
had
all.
lobsters the last time I was up visiting up there with you
In
and your mom.
Massachusetts, yes, Castle Wolfenstein those things down.
Well, you're an expert in the hunt. In the hunt.
Oh, there we go. Let's see here. Speaking of hunting, I guess it wasn't hunting, but Keisha Tate from Cherokee County, South Carolina, 42, was struck in the chest with a bullet. She didn't know what was going on, but her neighbor Nicholas Lucas was shooting at a target in his backyard, and I guess no, she heard gunfire. She stuck her head out the window, like, what's going on there? And then she got
Boom.
struck in the chest, and she turned to one of her 9 children. Uh, Get help! I love y'all. And then she collapsed.
Ouch.
Yeah, so now there's 9 motherless
Ah,
kids.
I mean, Florida, the scene of
No, no,
so
no, that
many.
was that was South Carolina.
Oh, South Carolina. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
get that
yeah,
straight.
yeah. Nicholas Lucas. That name is pretty kind of funny, actually.
I mean, you got to know where your bullets are going. I mean, this is the one of the problems.
Well, I don't. I think. I mean, I know they're
Random, a fluke. It's
well, it's
accident.
fluke. Well, I mean, also South Carolina, you can kind of do anything with guns down there. But I don't know if if you have like a house right next to you, I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't be shooting guns there. I don't know.
Go into the woods. I don't.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, how did you happen to see the newly released photo from the FBI of the cache found in all over the Trump dumpsters
Oh yeah, yeah.
location? Well, I mean, this is just so
Well,
outrageous.
I mean,
so ridiculous.
they basically, the Pentagon and just intelligence in general is like, well, we basically just lost years of work overnight.
That is the thing that really people need to understand is that because all this crap was lying around and there's so many rogue elements that go into that shithole of a whatever you want to call it, Mar-a-Lago. Uh, they have no idea who could have seen what. It's in drawers, it's in boxes, it's in and just this is so outrageous. I mean, that he's not in an orange jumpsuit to match his orange hair at this moment. I have no idea what I just think that they're waiting to have it locked up tight before they even go ahead.
Well, there's a real
Teflon Don. Speaking about Teflon Don.
There's a real international incident, such diplomatic disaster, because he's going around to his buddies because in that intelligence bragging about how he knows Macron, the prime minister or president of France, is his sex stuff, and he's like, oh, he's into this and he's into that, and basically France is like, what the fuck here? You guys are assholes. You're supposed to be our allies.
Fucking loose lips. He's such an idiot. I mean, that's what else is there? All right, well, here's another study I found kind of interesting. A study suggests magicians, too bad it wasn't musicians, unconsciously blink their eyes to manipulate the audience during difficult tricks. I know.
So blinking, like, certain patterns throw people
usually
off guard,
when people are blinking, they're usually lying. And what does a magician do? He lies with great craft. So a new study sheds light on an unconscious tactic that magicians may be using to deceive their audience. And this experiment was published in the Psychology of Consciousness, Theory, Research, and Practice, another one of my favorite manuals. And they found that magicians increase their eye blinking when performing difficult tricks, and that this tactic may be used to encourage synchronized blinking in the audience so that spectators are more likely to miss deceptive actions. Pretty interesting, yeah. And that it's not even conscious. So anyway, magicians are known to manipulate, audiences anyway. So a study by Weissman and Nakano found that spectators demonstrate synchronized blinking while watching magic tricks, particularly during moments when secret actions are being carried out. This is pretty fantastic. I'm going to start blinking.
So do you like magic tricks? Do you like magicians?
I don't find them tricky enough, but I don't find musicians tricky enough either, but I still tolerate them.
Well, some musicians are kind of magicians. They're kind of pulling all types of magic tricks up there.
They're certainly deceptive. But anyway, one of the scientists said, before I was a scientist, I was a professional magician, explained Barnhart, an associate professor at the chair of psychological science at Carthage College. And he said, my experience as a magical performer showed me just how fallible human perception and memory can be. So as a psychologist, I frequently turn to magicians as a source of insights about the mind that have yet to be tested. When learning magic, I was warned about the tendency for magicians to blink their eyes while carrying out sleight of hand in a rehearsal setting before a mirror, thereby blinding themselves to any evidence of their proficiency or lack of.
Whoa.
So he decided to seek out empirical evidence of their behavior after pursuing the literature on self-deception and realizing that evidence is there to support the existence of deep self-deception. But it was scanned. So he found that evidence for blinking behavior in magicians, it would have been some sort of first strong evidence that there is deep self-deception, because he hadn't found it in literature before. So anyway, he sampled a bunch of musicians. He'd been doing tricks anywhere from 6 months to 50 years. And they the magicians watched a tutorial for magic coin trick involving 10 sleights of hand. That's pretty good amount. So a week later, the magicians were filmed as they performed the magic trick 4 times, twice in rehearsal and then in front of a mirror and twice in a performance setting. And the researchers analyzed the footage and they coded the frames, noting whether the participants' eyes were open or closed, and performed an analysis to see whether the participants' eyes were blinking. And they found out that when the magicians increased their blinking, so did the spectator.
That's incredible study.
I really think that's pretty good. I mean, sleight of hand, sleight of eye.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. what about people with nervous tics who blink a lot?
Oh, yeah, we know a few of those. Exactly.
That's a whole other thing. So you hear about this 20-month-old baby in Spain struck by a orange-sized hail ball,
Oh,
died instantly.
ouch.
Catalonia, basically just like,
Wow.
I mean, yeah, wrong place, wrong time.
Well, I mean, the weather right now, I mean, really, a third of Pakistan, they claim by September, will be wiped out from flooding. Mississippi is like water emergency. It's, circling it's everywhere. Heat
Well,
dome in Europe, LA under a heat dome right now. I mean,
well, they
we're getting
discovered
off, we're getting off pretty good on the East Coast.
they discovered a plane that they couldn't find that crashed in the Swiss glaciers in the Swiss Alps in 1968, and because they're melting, they found a fucking old plane there. They're like, oh, there it is.
Well, what about the latest glacier breakoff that they said could increase sea levels by 10 inches soon
in
Greenland,
Antarctica?
Yeah.
Oh, Greenland. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because like the Ross ice shelf, which is the size of a country in itself, is just chunks of it are like the size of Texas are breaking off all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not on the ground floor.
Let's see here. I don't know if this is newsworthy, but I found it. Christine Fonders should have called 911 because she went to one of these 24-hour gyms and was doing her 3 a.m. workout when she got stuck in some of this equipment. She was hanging upside down forever, and she was about to pass out because all the blood was rushing to her head. Finally, someone else decided to do a workout at like 3:30 a.m. and they're like, "Hey, what's going on here?" They called 911. She was somehow caught up in this machine. I don't know how that happened, but maybe be careful when you decide to work out at 3 a.m.
I would say so. If I'm doing a workout at 3 a.m., it ain't at the goddamn gym. I can tell you.
Oh no, it's not.
Oh yeah,
it might be with a guy named Jim, but it's not.
Yeah. Oh, Jim, how could you treat me this way? I don't know. Well, it's better to ask him. Yeah. The stories are minimal at this point. I mean, I'm just kind of having a little bit of summer brain death, which is a relief. So that's where we're.
That's allowed. That's allowed. So I guess, do you want to do the? Do you want to introduce our guest this week?
I do, so I'll do it. This is Lydia Lunch and Tim Dahl, the Lydian Spin, episode number 164, with Alexander Hacke, member of Einstürzende Neubauten, has played with Crime in the City Solution, many other people, film composer, now performs quite often with his partner, Danielle de Picciotto in Hacke de Picciotto, and very happy to have him on the show. I've known him for many decades, and he's always surprising in both his joviality and the difference in the many compositions he makes. So here we are, another great episode of the Lydian Spin. Summer dog days are upon us. Bow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Alexander Hacke, a friend of mine for many, many decades. I think I saw you first when you were 14 at a Teenage Jesus concert in Berlin.
I don't think you saw me.
I think I did. You were tall, blonde, and 14, honey. How could I miss you?
Look out.
How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm very well. Thank you very much. The days are just packed,
They're packed. Yeah, well, of course, you're a composer, a multi-instrumentalist. You do soundtracks. You played with so many people. Let's start with what's the latest thing you're doing. I hear you were in with Danielle, with your project with her, in some old Stussy prison. Is this correct? Or a holding cell somewhere?
Yeah, we've been asked to participate in a sound installation composition in the former most notorious Stasi prison in Bautzen in Lausitz. It's in Saxonia.
Oh, near Dresden or something like this? Or
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Now, for people in America and other places that don't know who the Stussy were, just tell us briefly about these absolute terrorists.
Well, they were the equivalent of the Gestapo and the GDR and the, basically they were the people that would just abduct regime critics, activists, well, anyone basically who had a different opinion and put them into holding cells and, subject them to not physical torture, but certainly psychological heavy duty alterations. And yeah.
Absolutely. What was the reign of the Stasi? Were the Stasi just under the Nazi regime, or were they before and after?
No, they were in the GDR regime, which was the East German part of Germany. After the Second World War ended, Germany was divided into the
East and West,
between the Allied forces, and the Soviets took the eastern part of Germany, and that's where the Stasi operated. And the Western Allies, England, France, and the US shared the western part between them, or divided the western part between them.
So what is the installation like that you're doing? And is it just you, or other people involved besides you and Danielle? What's going on with it? It's very interesting.
It's not up anymore. It basically, we worked on it for 8 days, and then it was a show and tell, so to speak, on the 9th day, on the weekend, and we did a 8-channel 4 stereo sound installation in the main tract of the prison, which you can imagine just like, like any other old prison, with those like balconies, hallways, and on each floor we had like a stereo set of somewhat powerful active monitors, and we Danielle, I, and 2 other artists wrote compositions that were played in a sequence during 1.5 hour in the evening of the 9th of it wasn't it was some of the end of this month, like a few weeks ago.
What was the vibe like in there? Was it, I mean, sometimes places that have had horrible things happen just feel dead. Other times they feel electric with an agitation that doesn't go away. What was the feeling you got in that prison? Relief to leave it.
Oh yeah. I mean, man, like one of the artists, he set up his workstation like in one of those tiny cells and worked there happily. I was not able to do that. When we did our rounds there, when we were showed around, I could only spend like a few minutes in these actual cells. That's not something that I
well, look,
you enjoy, right?
You're one of the freest people I know, both musically and having been a nomad for so many years. So of course the last thing you want to do is be even in an open cell.
Yeah, and also the thing is, from the start we researched the place, and we researched the people that were held there and what was done to them. And the main thing about this whole system and this whole situation is the tragedy and also the frustration, because these people, they were captured for no apparent crime, right? They would write a petition that no more than 38 people signed or something like that, and then sentenced to 7 years in a place like that, and there was this constant teasing going on. They were interviewed and
interrogated,
not interviewed, but interrogated, absolutely. And with each interrogation that would go on,
right,
in the
days,
morning,
weeks, months, years.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Exactly.
They were promised, rewards for giving up this and that information, which they really could not give up, or they would even,
have to make up
things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Tell us what we want to hear, even though we don't know what it is.
Right.
Well, we'll know when we hear it.
And people will break. I mean, there's a lot of studies on all interrogation that you can basically get people to surrender any idea you push through if you really break them mentally and you exhaust their brain. And so it doesn't really resolve shit. That's an obvious point.
Yeah.
I want to talk some technical things. So what did it sound like in there? I mean, was it really reflective and echoey? I mean, I couldn't imagine there's not much fabric and soft things to absorb the sound in there.
No, very boomy. It's basically, it's like a cathedral,
Right.
Of hell.
Yes, a cathedral of hell. That's a very
and so every composer was asked to at least mix in 8 channels, right? So and how hard were they panned? Were the channels, did they bleed? Now, you said it's 4 stereo channels. Would they kind of sort of like how you mix a stereo record? There'll be things are often not hard pan to the right and left. I mean, was there blend, or were these all really just every channel has a very unique thing?
Yeah. Where everyone was preparing their compositions in their studio on their stereo monitors, and then we would take them out. And actually, we took one of the guards like boxes, that could had like a nice view of the entire track, and that's where we set up the mixing board and stuff, and then we kind of mixed our compositions for the location, just like placing different groups of instruments or different sounds in different spots of the building, and had them move around.
Was there any text involved in this? Did Danielle or you do text?
Absolutely. Danielle was there. We were given a couple of hours of video interviews with inmates.
My whole body had a chill. Yeah, now. Thank you.
Terrible life stories, really tragic. Anyways, and we listened to all of those. Everyone involved listened to those in preparation for the thing, and then
were these the interrogations or people afterwards talking about their experience?
People talking about it afterwards.
Okay,
about their wasted youth in a cell in Bautzen.
Right, for an intellectual difference.
Yeah. And then Danielle would she took these texts, she would transcribe them and edit them and do cut-ups with those texts, and also re-record some of the passages. Or
it must have been fantastic. It must have been just so fantastic, because that is what we do, is we take things that have been terrible and try to make something beautiful, or to resuscitate them in another way, whether it's mostly with trauma, or even, we'll say, one of the bands you've been in for many years, Einstürzende Neubauten, the collapse of buildings. I mean, just the thought of that as a concept is about recreating from destruction, which is a lot of what we do to save ourselves and others.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to, over the years, I think that has to be the strategy to tell a terrible story in a beautiful way. And it's not, and I don't think it's really, it's an anachronism, and it's really outdated to try to shock and provoke people into anything. Rather, it's rather about seducing them, or, like getting them
understand, and also not only to understand, but there's a lot of people that relate anyway. I never felt that anything I did was shocking myself, because if you're dealing with the truth or reality, if you're dealing with trauma or politics, you can't exaggerate it. So how can it be shocking? How can anything be more shocking than what you just experienced in the place you created something beautiful in? Correct? Yes. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
What's the first thing you did when you got out of there? What was the first thing you wanted to do when you got out of the prison?
Oh, well, to tell you the truth, this particular part of Germany is problematic also in another way, that it is it's Hicksville.
It's Hicksville.
It's completely permeated with very extreme right-wing people.
I mean,
Right.
like most of America.
like most of the South, for sure. Yeah. And
a lot of the world right now.
And a lot of the world, correct.
But it also happens to be one of the poorer parts of Germany, correct?
Yes, of course. I mean, these were the people that were, that are most frustrated with what they have been promised with the reunification. Like all the promises that capitalism had for them in the
right.
Some 30 years ago, and
but Alex, that's so well put, because that is what fosters a lot of dissent, and especially in America as well, is the endless carrot that dangles that people don't get. Then they want to blame everybody else instead of the politicians that assured them they weren't going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
So Bavaria is pretty right wing, but it's wealthy, and I guess that's the big difference. Even though they might be the orchestrators of a lot of this shit.
They're the people that don't want to lose what they have because others might take it.
Yeah, I mean, that is the main motivation for all of it. It's just you don't want to lose the little that you have, or you don't want to lose the little that you think you have.
Well, on the flip side, though, there was the Dresden Symphony Orchestra, Philharmonic, I don't know what it's officially called, because of the isolation during the Cold War, and because it really is German, kind of unique interpretations of classic German compositions that weren't really pushed by this kind of classical music industry kind of thing, and maybe a little more folky. I don't know how you describe it, but so there are some positive things about where they are and why they're there that have come from it too. It's not.
And there's positive things about Mississippi as well, except sure. I don't just mean the flooding that happened there. But anyway, Alex, let's get back to your as a child, your interest in music, your first instruments, and the first music you were interested in, because you started in bands very, very young.
Yeah, I was a pretty early dropout. I mean,
or a drop in.
Well, I decided with 15 years that I would be a professional musician, and I have been since. I got lucky that way, but it was always the attitude of new music, punk rock, experimental music, no wave, that fascinated me as starting up from a little kid. I think I was 12 when I attended my first Ramones show, and I sort of discovered the first Suicide album at the same age. And I would just stare.
And that is a great
record.
That's a great extreme between punk and just, you can't even describe suicide. And I've been doing this suicide tribute, which I'm doing again in November in Europe, mostly France and Italy. But that is such a good extreme, and within it, so many things then were created.
Yes, and I was when everyone else in my age group, and I would only hang up with a lot older people actually, so I was always the youngest. But when everyone in my age group would listen to Kiss or
straight rock.
Like Akadaka, like that kind
Akadaka, AC/DC.
Yes,
Akadaka, that's great.
So arena stuff, and you didn't want that. I mean, could you? So at 12, you're in West Berlin at the time, right?
And you went to see the Ramones.
But so all this stuff is happening. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but could you sneak into East Berlin for the night? I always heard stories of people sneaking into East Berlin. Or I've heard some American jazz musicians I've worked with claim, I don't know if it's true, but they claim they would.
West Germans and foreigners could go and even spend a night in the East. Me as a Berliner, I had to apply for a visa a couple of days ahead, and I could not leave Berlin. I could only travel to the east side of Berlin, and I would have to be back before 12 o'clock.
Well, and also as a young teenager, I mean, as well, but.
yeah, but generally, like even when I went with my father, to visit, I had an aunt and an uncle over there, and a cousin. My aunt was actually working for the GDR radio. She was doing children's programs, so she was quite popular. And my uncle was he was a news guy. He spoke the news.
He was an anchorman.
So what was the first instrument you picked up after your revelation that broadened the horizon between the Ramones and suicide?
Well, I inherited my drum kit from my great grandfather, who survived both world wars as a drummer. In fact,
wow,
he managed to survive both wars without ever picking up a weapon. He was always just the drummer. Yes, the drummer in the band, and he played the trombone and the cello later on. And before he died, committed suicide. In fact, he did a tour of Germany and passed on all his musical instruments to all his favorite great grandchildren or whatever. And I inherited the drum kit, and that kind of set it off. And I attempted to learn the guitar classically a few times, but I was always put off by something. And so I decided to teach myself. And I also at a very young age, my baby teeth wouldn't fall out, so I had to I would have to get 13 baby teeth pulled, which was quite of a traumatic experience. But also it enabled me to beg my mother to give me an electric guitar.
I'm suffering. Let me allow other people to suffer with me.
Yeah, exactly. So I could, and then
I wish I had those baby teeth. I have a whole jar of human teeth collected from many people. I'm sorry I don't have yours. What I wouldn't pay for one of your baby teeth.
when I lost my front tooth, which I have replaced by a golden one now, I gave it to Danielle. I put it in a nice thing so she can wear it as jewelry, but she wouldn't do that.
Well,
but she carries my tooth.
Who knows the blessings that she's put on that tooth?
Well, Alex, you know what you say to a person from England when they smile at you? Nice tooth.
So you got the electric guitar.
Yeah, and then later on, it was I continued drumming, and
I didn't know that you were drumming. That's amazing.
And I discovered that, in the very beginning with Neubauten in 1980, when I first played with them, I was drumming. I was drumming with them. Yeah. And I discovered the feedback on the electric guitar. And then also because I was really into industrial music, like Throbbing Gristle and music from the Death Factory. And so I pretty early on wanted a synthesizer, and I got myself a Korg MS-20 semi-analog synthesizer. Or my parents
semi-analog. So was it digital oscillators and analog filters?
No, it's all analog.
It's all analog.
Semi-analog in the way that you had to plug. You had to plug the parts together, the filters with the oscillators and stuff like that.
When did you start actually making your own music? So you're accumulating these instruments. You have the drums, you have the guitar, you have the synthesizer. And when did you actually, because you were playing in bands when you were a very young teenager, when did you say, okay, I'm making also my own music?
13 or something.
You whippersnapper. 13 or 14. Actually, I just re-released, with someone, I re-released all my early cassettes that I did in 1979 to 82. I put out. I was calling myself Alexander von Borsig then, because Borsig is a company where my father worked, and sound like a prince.
Yes, it's like an aristocrat. I just re-released all that. That's available. It's called Borsigwerke. You can get it on the Hacke de Picciotto Bandcamp site.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, that's great. We recently had Eater, the punk band from England, on, and they were like 14 when they started stealing instruments and performing. Younger even than I. I was 17. I was a late bloomer. You know me.
So I mean, you have a musical family, so I guess to some degree they really endorsed all of this.
Well, no. Well, my great grandfather, he was very musical. My parents are not that musical. I mean, I would, every time my father had a new affair, he would bring home the music that he that he would hear with his girlfriends.
Wow.
This way, my very conservative father would come home with a Bob Marley record, like very early on, because one of his girlfriends must have liked Bob Marley, so I got to listen to that. And my mom, she was really into jazz, like Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, like Nina Simone, all that stuff.
And were you into jazz?
Yeah. I love to put on all these old crackly records, vinyls of 7 inches and stuff, but basically my musical socialization was with Glam, really.
Oh yes. Oh,
there's a common theme on this podcast. A lot of people were by Glam.
Look, I still love a man that dresses as a woman occasionally and sings lyrics like "Bang a gong, honey, I'm still there." Glam was what Glam did to music was take music and sexuality out of the hands of people like the fucking Eagles. Right? It took it out of like really boring, either macho or folk macho, and turned it into something else.
Yeah, it was.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite Glam records? I have to know.
Susie Quattro, obviously.
Actually,
trying to get her on the podcast. Yeah, just wrote to her trying to get her on the podcast.
I had such a crush on Susie Quattro. You won't believe how I lusted after her listening to Can the Can.
Of course, Devilgate Drive.
Did you get to see her live?
No. I mean, this was like just touching. No, I wasn't even pubescent.
Right, and by the time she was like on Happy Days and TV shows, so that thing started changing.
She probably wasn't. I hope she was not shown in Germany.
No, it wasn't. No.
It doesn't matter. How did you get involved with? So it was Einstürzende Neubauten. When did you join that? What year was that you joined that?
1980.
1980, and on percussion and drums. On drums.
Yes.
How big was the band at that point as far as people in it? How many people were in it?
Only
three.
It was Blixer, Andrew, and me.
Wow.
It was after the two girls when they founded. It was originally Blixer, Andrew, and Beate and Gudrun of Malaria.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And then when they left and decided to prioritize their own thing, then Blixer and Andrew were on their lonesome for a little while, and then they took me, the little crazy kid, in.
How did you guys meet each other?
Well, I would skip school and hang out at this record store, the Zensor in Schöneberg. And that was like near the cafe and the hangout places. And I would, as a very young kid, I would go to the, like the clubs and the hangout spots. But really, how I really got to know everyone was in 1979. I saw a note somewhere that they were organizing an anti-fascist festival in the university Mensa or something like that. And I as a little kid, I went to the meetings where people would meet to organize the anti-fascist festival. And that's how I really got into the whole scene, because I would just like sit there at the table with them and say like, yeah, I think we should do this, and everyone would just like, oh, what's this? What's that?
I don't know if this is true, but I think it was Blixer that first put a Teenage Jesus single in the cafe that everyone used to go to in like 1979. I forget, there was this cafe that was very popular.
Cafe Mitropa.
Mitropa, right. I think that's what I heard, is that he actually impregnated the people of the cafe with the Teenage Jesus single.
Yeah, but all that music came from that record store, the Censor. You know, that's where I actually bought your first Teenage Jesus with James Chance still playing saxophone. I had that. I lost it, unfortunately, and I
lost it too.
I had the pink one, the pink 12.
Pink EP, very rare.
Yeah.
And,
I wish I still had
and
that.
Don't think I don't remember you in the audience, honey, because you were tall, blonde, and 14. You know, I do remember. Surprised we didn't meet then. I don't think we did. I don't remember when we first met. Do you?
When you came to Berlin with the birthday party, that ill-fated project with you and the birthday party, and Michael Nase.
Honeymoon in Red. The tapes were lost for 8 years, and I got them finally. They were lost for 8 years.
Oh, you have them back?
It was released, but it took 8 years. This Honeymoon in Red project.
I didn't know that it eventually came out.
Well, it came out quite a long time ago, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll send you the link.
Oh yes, please.
How old were you when you first started touring?
16, maybe 16. I went to. I was younger then. I was actually not there when Neubauten were founded, because I was on tour with another band. I was on tour with Eva Gößling and an American spoken word artist was Arlene Schloss. You know Arlene Schloss?
I don't know who that is.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ace Broom Street. Is it like the
don't know it.
Schloss, she's still alive, actually. She's very sick, apparently, I understand. But she was a spoken word artist from New York City. And she had a spot in New York called Ace on Broom Street.
Okay.
And when she first came to Germany, I had a friend, Eva Gößling. She would play with the girls of Mania Dea Malaria, and we would play music together. And we were like the band for the spoken word performances of Arlene Schloss, and we were touring with her. So I was on tour with 14. To Vienna and some places, Austria, even out of the country. I remember them. They had to come and sort of apply to speak to my mom and ask her to if it was okay. Could take me
can we
out
take
of
the sun? I want the sun. Bring me the sun. Exactly. So, Alex, how'd you deal with COVID? Did you get COVID, and how'd you deal with the lockdown?
Well, when we finally managed to go on tour with Neubauten this year, after we were originally booking the tour for 2020, which was our 40th anniversary year, and our 40th anniversary tour was supposed to be, and it happened finally this year. And because we were touring in an extremely cautious bubble. We would wear masks all the time. We would take a nightliner everywhere, like hardly any flying. No friends, no fans in the backstage room, no time spent at the merch table, nothing whatsoever. That's how we managed to actually play 25 shows out of 28 planned for the spring this year. And then I got it.
Hey!
And then I got it. And what was it? Utrecht, Dublin, and Hamburg had to be canceled or postponed again.
Did others in the band get it?
No band members. A few crew members also got it around the same time.
It's what's so mysterious. Nobody knows who does, who doesn't, why, where, when. I didn't
Absolutely
get it,
erratic.
and I was on tour quite a bit, and as far as I know, did not get it. And a lot of people are just getting it now, which is horrifying.
Yes, losing in overtime is always a bummer.
What were you doing during the lockdown? Which, I mean, as I've said, I kind of enjoyed. I had things to do, but I never leave my house unless I go on tour anyway. Have people come to me. But what did you do during the lockdown?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty antisocial myself, and therefore it didn't bother me that much. What did bother me about it was the effect that it had on me because I would get so angry at people all the time, like the fuckers that wear their mask, like on their chins, like, and the people that and also this is Germany. This is here. There is no sense of politeness or a courtesy here. Like people are like walk straight into each other. It's this sense we have this ingrained in our genes is this sense of entitlement. I have the right of way. I have
America.
I have a green light, and that's how accidents happened here. And so therefore it was terrible, and I would get into arguments with people on the subway like on a daily basis. And I'm
Put your mask on.
I'm very lucky that nobody fucking stabbed me on
Whoa,
all
so
my teeth up. Yeah,
you took it far. And as far as I was reading about it in Berlin, it was coming from all sides. So you, whether the right wing or the, as you guys call them, the esoterics, there was all this people that didn't want to basically work together.
Yeah, the anti-vaxxers, people that denied the fucking plague altogether, and then also just like the regular Joes that kind of enjoy the polarization of the whole thing, like and that whole it was very tiring and very annoying, and I'm happy that it's not that lethal anymore, and therefore like I can kind of, or everyone can sort of relax, even though it's so mandatory in public transport. Only half of the people wear a mask. But now,
if they don't want to wear a mask, they will face the consequences. But the fact is, they have no concern about the consequences they may be spreading, because a lot of times people can be infected and not even notice.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not going away. It's not gone. It's not going away.
Well, it's here for the rest of our lives.
And that's just the way humankind works. Remember when on cigarette packets first they started with just the warnings,
and in Europe they have the photos of the horror.
But in the very beginning they had these warnings, which were just like these sentences, these lines, and one of them was smoking will damage to you and your surroundings, and that one didn't work at all. Quite on the contrary, because people thought like, whoa, I can damage my surroundings with just a cigarette. Wonderful, let's do it. And the only two warnings that worked were the ones about erectile dysfunction, potency, blah blah, that made men want to stop. And then there was the other one that smoking will age your skin prematurely, or whatever.
How about the one with the baby with the cigarette in its mouth? That was a good one. Whatever. Oh my. Speaking about plagues, I mean, you were in Berlin when really a heavy period of drug use was going down. I mean,
still is.
But because more of it was heroin at that point. I mean, heroin, as far as I know, at least, it was a period when New York and London, and especially Berlin, really had a big heroin problem. Did you get caught up in that? Did you avoid? We know a lot of people that had problems with heroin.
Well, my first girlfriend was Christiane F., as you might know. So, but basically, I met her after when she got clean, like when she was already like a star, so to speak. And I sort of missed that first wave of heroin abuse. What I dove into and what I got completely immersed myself into was speed. Amphetamines. I was, for 6 years, I was a full-blown speed freak. I slept like once, maybe maximum twice a week, for 6 years. And so that was me. And also heroin, when I was out and about, like in the early 80s, heroin was not cool in Berlin. It became cool. And with whom? With the fucking Australians. When the Australians came to Berlin, they made heroin cool again, then and then
not to
took off
mention
from
any,
there.
not to mention any names, but one Australian in particular
Yes.
who OD'd in my presence 3 times. I said one more time, and you're dead. This is ridiculous. Heroin was never my. I tried it twice. I did not like it. I like to go up,
No,
not
me
down.
neither.
So
No,
did
me
I-
neither. I like to experience more, you know, like
Not
what's
less.
what's the use of a fucking painkiller? Come on, you know, bring
Well,
it on.
So
I
when you were deep into your speed zone, when you're going over the speed limit,
Up with the speed bumps.
were you hallucinating? Were you having full on
Of course,
psychotic episodes and all this stuff?
Absolutely, all of the above. Sleep deprivation. Thank you. Will do that to you.
Of course.
Absolutely. You see ghosts. You see.
You become a ghost.
Yeah, you see all kinds of things. You converse with all kinds of entities. Absolutely.
And what was there a final thing that you're like, you know what, I gotta stop this?
Yeah.
Basically, I mean,
you eventually got tired. You eventually got tired.
Absolutely. I got tired of it all, and I don't think it's very entertaining to act the way you did when you were 20 or in your early 30s, when you like past 40 or in your 50s. I'm straight edge now. I'm a vegan.
Not even a beer. Not even a German beer.
No.
You're ready to join Fugazi.
Yeah. get the X tattooed on my right hand, man. No,
yeah, but you did it. But the thing is, there does come a point, whatever it is. I'm all for obsessions. I don't think there's any taboos if you can find somebody to do it with consensually. But there does come a point where anything reaches a limit, and you should know what that limit is. And it no longer does what it once did, and it's no longer useful for what it once was. And that is the problem. That's the point that has to come. Like that was good then. Yeah, that was good then, and it's no longer good anymore. And that's just what has to happen.
It's the law of rhythm, It's the pendulum. It swings to one side until it cannot go any further, and then it swings back.
And when it's too close to your own throat, you got to jump off the platform and say, "That's enough for me." Thank you very much. I did that.
Yeah, no, but really, also, what also really started to bore me is this cycle of punishment and reward, where you go like, now I'm going to work really, really hard, and then I'm going to get really, really wasted. And the next morning you wake up and it's like, oh, I feel like crap, but I'm just going to work really, really hard, and then I get really, really wasted. And so this ongoing punishment reward, I thought after a while, that's really stupid. Let me just be in the now for once, like as silly as that may sound.
It doesn't sound silly to me. I'm here right now, honey. This is where I live, in the now,
Exactly.
Now. It's now wave, baby. It was no wave. Now it's now wave.
I mean, a lot of the musicians that were known for their heavy speed use, we have some mutual friends, actually. There's some bit of reflection where they're like, I got a lot of work done. Would you claim that you got a lot of work done when you were on speed, or was it just kind of running in circles?
I would claim that I find it amazing how well that stuff that we did in those states of minds, withholds the test of time. I mean, like how good a lot of it actually is. It could have been a lot worse considering how fucked up we were. But there's actually quite a few recordings that are still good.
That is what's interesting. But the thing is, this is why to use whatever it is that's going to take you to an altered state to create something that is an altered state is fine when you know the limit of that, and then you go on. Because I have to say, a lot of people who I know who were really fucked up at that period still did really fucking great shit. So it was hard to how do you reason with a genius who's falling down drunk or ODing until you slap him in the face 30 times and wake him up? That's very difficult. It's a very difficult road to toe, because some people's work did not suffer. Some people did have to get out of their own mindset in order to create something that was transcendent.
Yeah, and then hopefully eventually
You
they
go
grew
on, you
up.
grow up. Go
But
on the minute.
going back to the point of reflection, when we make music, sometimes it's hard to get perspective. I mean, you get really into it, but then just how it really looks or sounds from the outside, because you're so deep into it. Do you tend to, after making something new, do you tend to kind of step away for it or for a long time? And if you do, at what point do you kind of reopen it and just kind of reflect on it?
What I right now I work in a way that I seek the moment when the music actually becomes its own entity with its own demands, and where it is when it is not really me doing anything anymore. I just become like
The channeler.
a vessel, like for what the music wants. I serve, and then
Yeah.
not as in wave surfing, but I serve as a server.
Yeah.
Tim's the wave surfer.
Well, no, but it's always interesting when you're working on something and there's just something missing, and then just the littlest element, you switch it, and then just opens up, even though it's basically 99.9% the same thing, how it can just open up.
But
And
that might be under your own perspective of it too.
sure, but that's at least what I'm relating with Alexander about serving the music. Like, what is needed at the right time to kind of complete it or open it up or redirect it.
It may be completely contradicting what you think it needs.
Absolutely. And I a friend of mine, we talk about this. There's very few professions on earth where you come to a crossroads and you can choose the smart decision or the dumb decision, and you pick the dumb one and it's actually better. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think it's called rock and roll. How did you first get involved in doing soundtracks, Alex? Because you've done quite a few. And who was the first one that approached you to do a soundtrack?
With the first feature length film soundtrack I actually did for Uli Schüppe. He's the guy. He did a film on the bad scenes called a documentary called The Road to God Knows Where. And when he actually finished film school, his first feature film in 1987, I had done like little short film thingies, blah blah, Super 8 sound stuff. But that was the first actual feature film score that I wrote in 1987.
And did that lead to other ones?
Yeah, over the 90s and in the early 90s, I did a few for like German feature films and also documentaries. And I released my first compilation of film works, I think in 92 on Rough Trade. We had that, and we had Neubauten, we had like a series, like a label called Ego, and we would release all kinds of things there. And one of the things was my Filmarbeiten, film works.
Tell us about the documentary you did about the bridge between Germany and Turkey. And that's how I met, and he was sent to me from you, our friend Murat of Babazula. I love this Turkish band that does like modern Turkish music with belly dancers based in some tradition. He's a wonderful person. But the first time I went to Istanbul, this very tall man with a fur hat came up to me and said, "I'm your new friend. I'm sent to you from Alex Hacke." I'm like, great. So you helped make this documentary. Tell us about that for a minute.
That was I was involved in producing the live music or the score for a movie called Head On, Gegen die Wand by Fatih Akin in 2003. And to do that, I was working with like Gypsy, with Roma musicians, and they didn't speak the language. I didn't speak their language, but we managed to work together, and I produced their music, which then appears in the film as like between the chapters, between the acts of the story. And that film was very successful. It received all these rewards and blah blah. And it was.
What was that film called?
It's called Head On.
Head On, yeah.
It's a fantastic movie. I can only recommend you go out and find it. But then after this, Fatih, the director, he always wanted to do a movie about the music scene of Istanbul. And originally he was going to lead through the movie himself. but then when he saw how I worked with those Roma musicians for his previous production, he decided to have me go there and meet all those different Turkish
As the
musicians
musical
instead.
intermediary
as
and
as
conductor.
you as the Raikuda of that
Ah.
group, like Raikuda in Buena Vista Social
Yeah.
Club. I would go through Istanbul and meet like the hip hop kids,
Yeah.
the old opera singer, and all these different characters, and record them also with
Yeah.
my portable equipment. And so I was.
What year was this?
basically,
What year was that?
2004.
So 2004, because it's interesting. When I was in Istanbul, a lot of the music you'd hear sometimes it'd be hidden is this Kurdish music, which is illegal. It's illegal for them to play their music in Turkey. Did you
Now
get to
again,
capture any of the Kurdish music?
Yes, we have the great Aynur Doğan in there, and Aynur, she's like a Kurdish pop star. She in that, but there was this little window, and anyway, there was this, as you know, there's the window. Sometimes a window opens for a city, and that was a time for Istanbul when its window opened, and when all this great music happened there, and when Kurdish language and Kurdish music was actually legal for a very short period of time. I think
What was
now it's
this film
illegal
called,
again.
Alex? What was this film called?
It's called Crossing the Bridge.
Crossing the Bridge,
The Sound
right.
of Istanbul.
Yeah. So wonderful. And Istanbul was really fantastic. What people also don't know about Turkey is that, at the early 1900s, 1920, it was very liberal. It was very forward,
It is
and
one of the cultural centers of the
Absolutely.
world.
Of the world.
And
Byzance, Constantinople. It's like,
Constantinople, and it's so
everything happened
beautiful,
there. Yeah.
beautiful, and the people are so wonderful. The food is so good. Let's not forget the cats everywhere.
Well, but unfortunately, like a lot of places right now, there's just this wave of right-wing insanity going on, and it's really devastating.
They have this asshole leader in power right now.
But who doesn't have an asshole leader in power, right? I mean, it's everywhere. This
Well,
is
the
this
Finnish
is a virus.
the Finnish prime minister, she's
party hardy.
She's really cool. She's
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Cool. And also the Jacinda, the New Zealand prime minister.
Oh, right.
Cool
Yeah,
as
her.
well. Yeah, and I don't think Biden is too bad. He's actually a very successful president.
Well, that's a different conversation. I can be pretty critical, of course. That's a whole other subject. So,
of course, but it can get a lot worse, and it will get a lot worse.
It was a lot worse, and it
Yeah,
will.
it was a lot
worse. Oh,
yeah, but
back to joy.
Anyhow, where were
How
we?
how far in advance do you look? We're very independent. So you that you have the Neubauten thing, which is the mega dawn, which occasionally does go on tour for big tours, and then you have a lot of other other projects that go on. What people have to realize is people like us, we have to plan pretty far in advance to know what we're doing and to try to get shows, and especially with the hiccup of the pandemic. So I mean, and of course it might be easier for you touring with just Danielle, but still you have to plan pretty far in advance to get things going.
Yes, I mean, and with our previous lifestyle, I mean, now it's a little different, but when we were like
nomading,
full-blown nomads, we had to know pretty much exactly what we do the next year at the same time, because if that would fall through, we would have to have a plan B and C in place, and actually it's still that way. And frankly, I don't really know how
I don't know
long.
I don't know how either. This is it. It's like this is the dilemma. Oh, we're independent artists, yet already I have to know what's going on. I have to start thinking about next February, March, April, May. And it's like, this is the prison of independence.
Yes.
It's because you really
we need
have
boundaries. Give us boundaries.
Well, we need more shows is what we need. More shows,
absolutely.
please. How about higher pay? Thank you very much.
No, we need support by a community of friends or fans. Like if we manage to, every town that we go to, if we manage to draw like say 500 people everywhere we go, then we can make a
but
enough,
if we could, that'd be great. And then there are some things that draw a lot more and some things that just draw less. It doesn't make you want to do them any less. We have to do what we have to do, which is a multiplicity of things, because one thing will not satisfy any of us. Not you, not me, not Tim
all musicians.
Dahl.
All musicians have to deal with this, even on the arena level. You know, in order to get to one town, you have to go through this other town, and there you are on a Tuesday. And you know, if you have a great tour, you fill up every night, but almost every level, that's actually not really the case.
You know what? I don't really give a shit about the arena level, because
what I'm saying is, no, even, you know, we always say, oh, well, maybe if I had more money, more of this would be even easier. But I think it's the same struggle, quote unquote.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know.
I struggle really hard if I had 150 shows or 200 shows a year in a big nightliner. Oh yeah. Don't think so. I don't.
Okay,
so,
but the
nightliners. But actually, let me tell you, those big shows and some. This is like
I have
a monster.
Interest.
This is a monster
that
is growing, and there's something that has to be watched very closely. You know what these people like Event Team and Ticketmaster and stuff. It's this is also it. What they do is it makes artists in general, even those big names, it makes them perfectly replaceable and expandable. You know, because and what they also do is they buy into real estate. You know, it's like an empire that they're building that goes way beyond music. You know, it has nothing to do with music, but what is building there, and that's very, very scary.
Well, what's not so scary is that there are many of us on this side of the real estate divide who will continue to do exactly what we fucking need to do and want to do musically and in every other way, whether someone's coming or not, whether somebody's buying it or not, whether somebody's paying for it or not. And that is why we have the Lydian spin. And that's why we are talking to Alexander Hacke. And this is the Lydian spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Alex Hacke, my friend of many decades. I can't wait to see you. I don't know when, but
yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Any performances or future shows that you want to plug right now that are kind of
I don't know when this is screening.
Friday. It's going out Friday.
Friday, what, tomorrow or next week? On Friday this week. Yeah, well, this Friday. So today we're playing in Dresden, and
we'll miss that because this will already be up.
and tomorrow on Saturday we'll be playing in Leipzig.
I love Leipzig.
Home of Bach.
Who will be playing? Which
will be Hacke de Picciotto will be playing at the Ute Konnewitz, which is a beautiful old
we play
cinema.
We play there.
Love it.
Wonderful place, and we play together with a great Dutch noise duo by the name of Gleis. I recorded and I produced an album of theirs in 2018 called Cielo. And they're these two guys from Holland that make this infernal noise in a very relaxed, very charming, and very suave manner. And they'll be opening for us. And
those are both in Leipzig. That's in Leipzig.
That's in Leipzig.
Yeah. And Friday and today, Friday, you'll be where?
In Dresden.
In Dresden.
So Saxonia, you're going into Saxonia. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. That's where we are this weekend. And another thing that I want to tell you about is that in the winter, in December, on our last tour through Italy, we discovered this incredible recording studio in Napoli called the Auditorium. And it's one of the oldest recording studios in Europe and on the planet. And it has all this like ancient, wonderful equipment. And we are going to record our new album there. They have all these old instruments like tubular bells and like weird shit. And that's going to be the next Hacke de Picciotto record.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Recorded in Napoli.
Beautiful.
Fantastic.
I love Naples.
I love it too. Thank you so much, Alex. Much love and joy to you. Keep going, my friend.
Right back at you.
See you as soon as possible, my friend. Take care.
Yes. Great seeing you, Alex.
Likewise, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.